Hello and welcome everyone to our debate on effective online learning, opportunities, limits, and lessons learned. So since the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis, a lot of teaching, a lot of learning has been moved online. And connected with that is a new urgency to rethink established online learning or find ways to develop appropriate online learning approaches kind of on the spot. It goes without saying that developing a course for online learning and training is different from preparing face-to-face learning. Some elements will translate well. Other elements require a completely different approach and methodology. And we meet here today to discuss exactly that. What makes effective online learning? What experiences do we have that we can share with others? So in order to do that, we have three excellent speakers, and I'm very happy that they were able to join us. So let me very briefly introduce them. I, of course, will not be able to do justice to their rich experience. We have with us Ambassador Kishan Rana, who is a Professor Emeritus and Senior Fellow at DiploFoundation. He was in the Indian Foreign Service between 1960 and 95 and held many high-level positions. We also have with us Ambassador Petru Dumitriu, who is a Romanian diplomat who joined the Joint Inspection Unit in the UN system in 2016. And last but not least, we have Ms. Bodil Neuenschwande. She is a business developer at Corp Academy, which is an organization that explores innovative approaches to online learning. Each of the speakers will shortly give a very brief 3-minute overview and introduction to their perspective. After that, we will continue our discussions in breakout rooms. And here I will have to make a quick note on breakout rooms, because based on your preference, so based on which of our speakers you want to join, we will allocate you to the rooms. And there you will have 20 minutes for an in-depth discussion with our experts to raise your concerns and raise your questions. So just to let you know what is on the menu, Kishan will look at the question, why is e-learning why is online learning more effective than traditional learning? Petru will look at the question, why is e-learning useful in the UN system? And Bodil will look at the question, what are some of the new approaches in personalized corporate learning? So if you want to join them, please let us know in the chat. For example, by type, if you want to join Kishan on the question of effectiveness, please type effectiveness in the chat. If you would like to join Petru on looking a bit more on the UN system, please type UN system. If you would like to join Bodil for her look at new approaches, please type new approaches in the chat. This way we will be able to allocate you to one of our speakers. For those following the streaming on Facebook or YouTube, we can't give you a choice. Unfortunately, you will be with Kishan on the question of effectiveness. But without further ado, I would like to give the word to our speakers for their brief introduction. And while they are talking, please already let us know about your preference so we can put you in the right room. So as promised, without further ado, over to Kishan for his very brief introduction.
Thank you very much, Katharina. Quickly, I will try and make 5 points. First, our type of part-time learning involves about a time commitment of 8 hours per week. It's done in parallel with whatever other work you do. Second, every text of a lecture, which has a 1-week life, is chewed over by the class in such a way that in that 1 week, the class produces between 60 to 100 class comments, and the lecturer usually responds to 70%. In which real classroom can you even ask 10 questions? My third point, this 1 week exposure to a single lecture embeds concepts, methods, and ideas far better than a single lecture delivered on face-to-face in a lecture room. My fourth point, we use different methods to get the class more involved in a sense of sharing the learning process. I use something called seminar papers, where 3 or 4 people collaborate and write a paper of 15 to 1800 words. You may be astonished that our failure rate for the group not to write a joint paper is less than 2%. That is, the groups collaborate across geographies, across cultures, across mindsets to produce one single document, which is then chewed over by the class. I have 1 minute left. My final point is that this is an international class. Typically, a Diplo class has people from 8, 10, 12 countries. In which real classroom today, unless you are at a charmed location like Harvard or Sorbonne, I don't think you would get that kind of diversity. I still have 30 seconds. I will simply say that we should look at online learning with new eyes. Let's put aside prejudice. Let us put aside the oversimplified notion that the only way of real learning was to look into the teacher's eyes. This way also we work effectively with online knowledge acquisition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kishan, for your kind introduction and for talking a little bit of Diplo's online learning approach. And also thank you for sticking to the time. It's very much appreciated. So again, a reminder for everyone, if you want to join Kishan for a 20-minute in-depth discussion, please type effectiveness in the chat so we can allocate you. But now over to Petro for his brief introduction on the focus of the UN system that he will be taking. Over to you, Petro.
Thank you very much. So I have 10 points, double points of Kishan, but at the same time limits. I will try to be as concise as possible. I'm not talking about the advantages and usefulness of e-learning in general, but what makes it more specific and more important, more meaningful for the United Nations system. I would say I would enumerate this number of multiplying factors for those advantages. First of all is the global presence of the United Nations. We are quite ubiquitous in the whole world. Maybe even the most expanded multinational organizations do not have that geographic area covered. Number two is the aspiration to work as a system. So when we're saying United Nations, we mean I say dozens and dozens of organizations of various profiles, and we have to work as a system, and that is important from the point of view of learning. Number three is the silos breaking facilitation. Learning together might be a first step to work together better. Number four is the double of audience of all the United Nations organizations, in the sense that they have to provide learning to their own staff, but also to the member states in various projects of capacity building. Number five is the holistic vocation of Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, which really prompts the system to work in a cooperative and interdisciplinary way. Number six is partnerships facilitation. So we are now engaged into a different stage of working, not only among member states, but also with the other entities outside the system, the civil society and the private sector. Number seven is an issue that is common for everyone, but it has some specific relevance for the United Nations, is the resource constraints. We don't have that much money allocated for learning in the system. Number eight is the knowledge production. I think e-learning might be a tool for us to help the system to develop as much as possible knowledge in the system, rather than importing it from outsiders. Number nine is Article 101 of the United Nations Charter, which asks for the highest levels of competence of the United Nations officials, which means that there should be a way for personal motivation as against the usual conducive environment to learning. And number 10 is a very practical way, empowering the learning managers to monitor the learning efforts of their staff, of the people for which the organization pays. Thank you.
Thank you, Petro. This was impressive. I was actually timing this and it was 3 minutes. So 10 points in 3 minutes. That's a shining beacon of effectiveness, I must say. So again, if you want to join Petro, please type you and system in the chat. And I can already see a number of people who are interested in the discussion, which is excellent. But last but not least, let me hand over to Budil, who is talking about new approaches. So in 3 minutes, can you give us a little bit of a hint of what you will be talking about?
So hi, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be part of this exciting webinar. I have not prepared any points. So basically what I would love to discuss during the breakout session is the fact that personalization is going to change and also to challenge learning and development by providing customized learning experience to everybody, basically. And I also think, and I'm quite convinced, that we are going to observe some tendencies which we have seen during the last decades within the field of marketing. So I would love to discuss that. And there is one point more, and I think that could also be very interesting to hear your thoughts and impressions on that, is that maybe personalized digital learning allows us to cope with the speed or the increasing speed that the world is changing. So if you have any experiences, thoughts, impressions, inputs on new approaches for personalized digital learning, or maybe also concerns or pain points, I would be more than happy to discuss that during the breakout session.
Thank you so much. Even more efficient, less than 3 minutes. Thank you so much. So we can see your preferences in the chat, and we will be allocating you now. Before we start the discussion in breakout groups, I have 2 quick points. The first point is that obviously the choice we are asking you to make is not easy because all of these topics and all of these speakers are extremely interesting. So we have something prepared in case you're suffering from FOMO, the fear of missing out. In the follow-up, we will provide a written summary and we will also provide the recordings of each of the discussions. So even though you might be in one specific discussion right now, you will be able later to catch up on what has been said in the other rooms. In addition, our moderators will give you a very brief summary of the discussion in each of the breakout groups once we get all back together again in about 20 to 25 minutes. On the technical side, when you've been allocated to a room, you will see a window popping up which asks you to join that room. The only thing you have to do then is to accept, and magically you will be transported into the other room. If you have any questions or comments so far, let us know in the chat. And otherwise, I'm looking forward to the in-depth discussion we're going to have.
Petro, would you like to say a word while we have this empty space about your observations when you carried out this search into different methods used by different entities? I think you came to interesting conclusions. Can you share some of those conclusions, perhaps?
Now, I don't
think... In a very general way.
Oh, yes. First of all, I think learning is not receiving the attention that is needed for knowledge organizations like the United Nations system. Secondly, I would say that the choice of e-learning options was not very systematic and very programmatic. It was rather a chaotic choice, a matter of spontaneity and personal inspiration of learning managers. Another thing is that there is a need to rebalance a little bit the responsibilities of the organizations for learning and the personal motivation of the learners. To somehow, and it is a very opinion based on a lot of observation in the system, even as I am now within the system, the staff waits from the organizations nice opportunities that might be helpful for their career advancement, and they are not all in a systematic way ready to make a personal efforts to be up to it. This is why I mentioned the Article 101 of the Charter, because competence should be already acquired when you enter in the United Nations system.
Let me just quickly get in there, because you should be able to see the option to move to a different room now. So if you do see that, please take the option, and we will see each other back here in about 20 minutes. Here we go. Thank you so much, and see you soon back here.